This is Madden Steal a Player. We'll be playing through an entire season with the worst team from the NFL last year, but every time they beat a team this season, I can steal any player from that roster to add to ours with the ultimate goal of winning the Titans the Super Bowl. However, I only have one season to do so, and our first test of the season was going to be going up against Caleb Williams in the Chicago Bears. This game was not off to a great start as we were down 3-0, but needed another third down stop here and would get it. And we now had a chance to score and take the lead for the very first time today. Things continued to be seeming to go our way as Will Levis would connect with Kelvin Ridley for another touchdown, and we would still have a 3-point lead over the Bears here in the fourth quarter. This was a crucial fourth down that we needed to pick up, and we would do so no problem, allowing us to score just a couple plays later against the Bears. We had a 7-point lead with under 2 minutes to go, and we're trying to run out the clock, but instead, we would run the ball all the way to the end zone, putting us up by 2 scores, getting us our first win of this challenge, and that meant we got to steal a player from the Chicago Bears roster. Will Levis surprisingly had a great game, so I don't think we are going to upgrade the quarterback position just yet. And currently, right tackle was one of our worst positions on the team, so we would be trading for 23-year-old superstar dev trait Darnell Wright. We had our first home game of the season, and we're taking on Aaron Rodgers in the New York Jets. But with 2 turnovers already from our offense today, this game wasn't looking as promising as our game against Chicago did. Finally, we had got down in the red zone though, and Will Levis would show off some great mobility on this play. And after our defense would give up another field goal, Will Levis now had under 2 minutes to try to get our offense down the field for some more points. With all 3 of our timeouts still remaining, it looked like a good possibility that we would at least get 3 points at a minimum out of this drive. And right as I say that, Will Levis would help us find our way into the end zone. Just out of field goal range and facing a fourth down, coach would keep the offense on the field with a possibility to take the lead, and it looked like that risk we took would pay off as Will Levis would connect with his tight end who would fight his way into the end zone, giving us our first lead of the day as we would get a third down stop here against the Jets offense. With a 2-point lead, all we needed now was one more first down against the Jets defense to seal this game, and we would do just that, picking up our second win of the season. And as tempting as it was to take Sauce Gardner, we did not need an upgrade at the cornerback position right now, so we would get Quinnen Williams to help fill our defensive line. As a Green Bay Packer fan, it was gonna pain me if we defeated these guys and had to take one of their players off of their roster, but I also didn't want to lose this challenge, so we had to do what we had to do. I'm not entirely sure who I would take if we end up beating them though, because even though they have a lot of young talent on the offensive side of things, we only have one season. More than likely, I will end up probably taking someone from the Packers defense if we end up winning this game today, but we can't get too far ahead of ourselves as we were down 10-7 in the second quarter. That would quickly change, however, as on 3rd and 8, Will Levis would scramble out of the pocket looking. He couldn't find anything he liked, so he would take this and fight his way into the end zone. And we were now up 14-10 over the Packers and would force a fumble out of Jordan Love. That would allow us to go up 21-10 over the Pack as once again Will Levis would take this in on his feet, and one field goal here before halftime would make it a 7-point lead over the Packers. They would go down and score a field goal of their own on their first possession of the second half, but we would respond with a touchdown. And it was obvious if we won this game that our defense was what was going to need to be upgraded. We hadn't been able to get a defensive stop all day, it felt like, against the Packers, as they would get one here, but finally we would get one on 3rd down as we would sack Jordan Love. After a fantastic punt return setting us up in great field position, Pollard would run this in for a touchdown, and all we needed was one last 4th down stop here against the Packers. That would make it 3 straight wins for us on the season, and another player we could steal to add to our team. As I said earlier, we would be going after someone from the Packers defense, and would successfully steal Xavier McKinney from the Packers. We were on the road looking to make it 4-0 to start the season against the Miami Dolphins, and it took only a couple of plays for us to find the end zone. And how many times can you say you've seen a score 7-5 in a football game in the second quarter? That stop would give us a 2-minute drill here with Will Levis as he would connect with Boyd down the left seam, who would beat the defense deep and take this to the house for a touchdown. But headed into the fourth quarter, surprisingly, Miami was not out of this game as it was still only a 5-point lead for us. We would quickly change that, however, as Will Levis would take this on the quarterback draw, and despite our upgrades to the defense, we still couldn't seem to get a stop. Thankfully, we recovered that onside kick, however, and it would allow us to walk away with a victory over the Dolphins here, as we were now 4-0 to to start this season challenge, and we would be stealing Jalen Phillips off of the Dolphins roster. 4 games into the season, we were undefeated, but also we're playing against the undefeated Indianapolis Colts in our next game, and I was interested in trying to steal Quentin Nelson as we could always use a boost to our offensive line. We surprisingly had one of the toughest divisions in all of football this season, and certainly weren't going to win the AFC South if we couldn't make routine plays like kicking a field goal. Neither team had scored here at the start of the second quarter. Even though the Colts would score a field goal on that possession, we had a chance to take the lead over them and would do just that, and hopefully we could make this field goal this time to go up 17-10. Please do not bother asking me down below in the comments section how I am this bad at Madden in general, because even though we've missed 2 field goals at this point, we were still up by 4, and then Will Levis would make it another touchdown for us, scrambling all the way into the end zone, meaning all we had to do now was either run out the rest of the clock or score a touchdown, and we would do just that as we'd pick up the win against the Colts, meaning we were going to get Quentin Nelson to add to our offensive line. I wasn't quite ready to sim any games yet as we were taking on the Buffalo Bills, because if we won this game, we could potentially replace Will Levis. Will Levis has actually been playing fantastic for us, but who could pass up the opportunity to get Josh Allen on their team as he was showing why with this play, as our offense could use all the help they could get still as we were currently scoreless in this one. We've taken our first lead over Buffalo and now had 2 minutes to try to get down the field and get some more points over them before halftime, and Will Levis made 2 great back-to-back plays for us, and it was probably his last game starting. Josh Allen was doing his best to try to get his team back in this game as faced with a 3rd and 9, he would take off inside the 5, but our defense would come up with a huge stop for us on 3rd and goal. Only up by 5, we needed to extend this drive and pick up the 4th down conversion, and doing so would allow us to get into the red zone where Will Levis would throw a dart to the end zone for 6 here. If we could recover this onside kick, we could have ourselves a brand new quarterback on our team, and we would do just that as we'd pick up the victory, and little did Will Levis know that that would be the last time he was high-fiving his teammates. I felt pretty good about how our team was doing, so I wanted to see how we stood up against the Detroit Lions, but unfortunately that would be our first loss of the season and we didn't get to take any players. Our next game was against the 1-7 New England Patriots, and I didn't think we needed to play this one either, and I have absolutely no idea how we lost to a single win team. This was our first chance to actually get to see Josh Allen in action for us against the Chargers, but so far this game our offense hasn't seemed to be much better than it was with Will Levis. With less than a minute to go, it was time to see what Josh Allen could do for us as he would connect with Tyler Boyd and he would have no one in front of him as he would beat his man to the end zone. And now it was Calvin Ridley's turn in the 3rd quarter as on play action, Josh Allen would find him off of 1 foot, and after finding him for a 2nd straight touchdown, it looked like this game was over for them. This was a much needed win for the Titans, as after 2 straight losses, we could finally steal another player. We would be taking 91 overall strong safety Derwin James from the Chargers, and after that steal, we had to have one of the best defenses in the entire league. Minnesota was another single win team I wasn't too worried about, and there is just no way, as good as we are, that we keep losing to horrible teams like this. Finally, EA doesn't make us lose a game to a horrible team as we defeat the Houston Texans barely, and that means we finally get to upgrade our tight end position as we steal Dalton Schultz from them. This was one of our biggest games of the season as we were taking on a 9-3 Washington team. If we could win this game, it might help solidify us as one of the best teams in the league, but if we wanted to do that, we needed to slow down Jaden Daniels, who was on a tear this year just like he was in real life. We were up 14-7 and needed a 3rd down stop here but would not get it, but thankfully this time we would come up with a stop on 3rd and goal to keep them out of the end zone. That wasn't enough to deter them, however, as they would go for it on 4th and goal, but they would run the exact same play they just previously did, allowing us to take over and score on our next possession. Once again, they had the ball on 4th down and were going for it, and we would get a stop, this time coming in the form of an interception, which would be taken back inside the 20. And one more touchdown on this drive would seal the game for us, and we would get just that as Josh Allen would find Calvin Ridley, getting us a 42-7 blowout victory, allowing us to steal 1 player from the Commanders roster, and we would take right guard Sam Cosby from them to beef up our offensive line. We hadn't broken 90 in any of our overall rankings just yet, and we still weren't even the #1 projected seed in the AFC. Hopefully that would change with a win against the Jacksonville Jaguars this week, as our defense was off to a strong start, forcing a fumble and recovering it, and our offense would waste no time getting down the field as Tony Tony Pollard would find a lane and he would take this one all the way to the house for us. But now we needed to keep the Jaguars offense out of the end zone. We would do just that, but they were going for it on 4th down and would pick it up. But we had another chance as we had them backed up to 3rd and goal and would get the stop, forcing them to yet again go for it on 4th down, and we would get another stand. We would then find ourselves down in the red zone and once again would find the end zone. But after a Jacksonville Jaguars touchdown, we now only had a 7-point lead. With all 3 timeouts still remaining, it was time to see if Josh Allen could get us down the field and into the end zone before halftime. And after getting set up in the 5, Tony Pollard would punch it in for us. Now we were the ones going for it on 4th down here to start the second half, as we would pick up the first, allowing us to get in the end zone and go up 28-7 over the Jaguars. With only 3.5 minutes to go, Jacksonville's chances of winning this game weren't looking great, but after making it a 7-point game, this one wasn't over yet. Faced with a 3rd and 7, if we wanted to win this game, we had to convert, and we would do just that, as all we would have to do now is run out the rest of the clock against the Jaguars defense, giving us a Week 14 victory here at home and allowing us to steal a player from their roster as well. We finally had a ranking over 90 overall, and it was now our defense, but we were still projected to be the 2nd seed in the AFC conference, as our record was currently tied with the Ravens and the Chiefs at 10-3. We had Joe Burrow backed up to a 3rd and 18 on this play, and there was absolutely no way they would end up converting it, leading to the Bengals scoring the first touchdown of the game today. Thankfully, it wouldn't take long for us to respond, as our offense would march down the field and find their way into the end zone, and now had a chance to go up 14-7 against the Bengals. After forcing a turnover, our defense would put our offense in prime field position yet again, and we were now quickly starting to run away with this game against Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals. This would be the first time today we wouldn't score a touchdown while in the red zone, but after we recovered Evan McPherson's onside kick against us, there wasn't anything the Bengals could do to come back. Even though we upgraded this position from our very first game against the Chicago Bears, we would happily steal right tackle Trent Brown from the Bengals, and we were now a 91 overall team on every side of the ball. This was a big game for us against the Colts on the road, as we needed to win this game if we wanted to lock up our division this season. They unfortunately would score first, and now we were playing catch up against them, and even though they would get that 4th down stop, it wouldn't stop us from tying it up here in the second quarter. Our defense was having a hard time slowing down the fast combination of Anthony Richardson and Jonathan Taylor, so even though we don't need a running back, if we win this game, I'm probably going to end up taking Jonathan Taylor anyway. We were finally going to get a 3rd down stop as we had this screen covered, but they would still take a 3-point lead as they would drill this field goal. We unfortunately would only be able to respond with a field goal of our own to tie it up, but after an Indianapolis turnover, found ourselves in prime field position. On 3rd and 2 from the 7, Josh Allen would find Calvin Ridley, who would make his way into the end zone, and after yet another Colts turnover, we had a chance to seal this game permanently. Josh Allen was having a fantastic game for us today, and that would continue for us as he would rack up his 4th passing touchdown of the game, helping us secure this division win against the Colts. And instead of Jonathan Taylor, I would decide to steal DeForest Buckner from them. Ideally, we should be able to beat the Jacksonville Jaguars no problem in this game, and as expected, we would destroy them 42-14, allowing us to add another Josh Allen to the team, this time on defense. We would pick up a win in our very last game of the season as well against the Texans, 35-23, and the last player we would steal in the regular season would be wide receiver Stephon Diggs. Josh Allen would have a fantastic season, throwing for 4,300 yards, 38 touchdowns, and only 9 interceptions. And surprisingly of all people, Tyler Boyd was our leader in receiving yards this year. Josh Allen currently led the race for MVP voting, and no surprise, Brian Callahan was the front runner for Coach of the Year. We would finish with a 14-3 record, tied for the best in the league with the Ravens, and thankfully, we would end up getting the #1 seed over them headed into the playoffs. We were taking on the Indianapolis Colts in the first round of the playoffs, as they upset the #4 seeded Jets in the first round. Stephon Diggs was also making his debut with us in his very first game. It would not take him long to find the end zone, as he would get our first touchdown of the game, and we would end up scoring 2 touchdowns before the start of the second quarter. The Colts needed to get back in this game and were going for for it on 4th and goal, and even though they'd score a touchdown, we'd respond right back with one of our own. With all 3 timeouts remaining, Josh Allen had less than a minute to try to get us down the field, and if we could get a touchdown, we could go up by 3 possessions before halftime, but that wasn't going to happen as Josh Allen would throw an interception, and this would be taken all the way back for a pick 6. We would stall out in the red zone and would have to settle for a field goal in the 3rd quarter, and with just under 4 minutes to go here in the 4th quarter, we needed some points to try and seal this game against the Colts. On 1st and goal from the 8, Josh Allen would find Stephon Diggs for a 2nd touchdown, and that proved to be a worthwhile steal from us for the Texans, as we would pick up the win and were facing the Baltimore Ravens in the AFC Championship. We were only 1 win away from going to the Super Bowl, but would have to punt on our first possession. But after our defense would get a stop, we had a chance to bounce back on this drive as we went for it on 4th down. That seemed to be the right call, as on 2nd and goal, Josh Allen would find the end zone to DeAndre Hopkins. And now once again, our defense was looking to get another stop against Lamar Jackson. It was going to be tough to slow down Lamar Jackson and the Ravens offense all night if we only had 7 points. And I can't even comprehend how Derrick Henry dropped this touchdown pass. He was so mad he dropped that pass, he almost turned into Ray Rice here. Thanks to that drop, we would only hold them to 3 points from Justin Tugger, and after our defense got a safety to start the 2nd half, Josh Allen would show off not his arm, but his leg as he would barrel forward through 3 defenders into the end zone. And we now had a chance to put away the Ravens as Tony Pollard would take this outside and into the end zone for 6. Thankfully, we played a lot better in the 2nd half tonight, and now we're getting ready to take on the Los Angeles Rams in the Super Bowl. It had been a tough-fought battle so far throughout the 1st quarter as neither team had scored to start this one, but it looked like LA was going to change that as Puka Nacua would get in the end zone first for the Rams. We were nearing the halfway point of the 2nd quarter and we still had not got on the board yet, so we needed to change that ASAP, and thankfully Tony Pollard would do just that for us on 3rd and goal. We were down 14-7 with under a minute and a half to go here in the 1st half of the Super Bowl, and we were trying to see if Josh Allen could get us down the field and get us more points before halftime. With all 3 timeouts still remaining for us, that looked like it might be a possibility as he would take a shot deep and that would be intercepted by the Los Angeles defense. But just like last game, our defense would get a safety to start the 2nd half, and that would allow us to take the lead here on this Tony Pollard run. We would get the 2-point conversion, which would make it a 3-point game for the Rams here, and that meant we needed to hold them to a field goal on this possession. Thankfully, we'd get the 3rd down stop and they wouldn't take the lead, and we were now nearing the end zone with a chance to take the lead back from them. We'd get stopped on 3rd down, so would send out our field goal unit to take a 3-point lead, so that meant this was a crucial 3rd down and we needed to stop but couldn't get it. This was the biggest drive of the game both for us and LA as L'Jarius Sneed would come away with an INT and there was no one in front of him as he would take this all the way back to the house for a pick 6. And even though LA would respond with a touchdown, they needed to get this onside kick and couldn't, meaning we were walking away as Super Bowl champions. Stealing players from other teams seems to work just great, but so does subscribing to the channel and checking out this other video that I posted.